53106 is the number for your text messages. This is Lunchtime with Jonathan Healy. We were talking last week about the number of burglaries that are taking place in the country, but with the downturn, many thieves are refocusing their activities and turning to the theft of heating oil and metal as a new source of revenue. The new trend has reached pretty bad epidemic proportions in some parts of the country. Recently in Limerick, parts of the county were left with no phone service after a copper phone cable was ripped from the poles. Householders in North Galway recently warned by Gardaí to be extra vigilant as people are stealing home heating oil from the tank by siphoning it. Sergeant Tony Davis from Anglesey Street Station, he is the Crime Prevention Officer, is with me in our Upper Lane studio. Tony, good afternoon to you.
Afternoon, Jonathan. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks, Tony. Tony, have we seen a significant shift in the type of crime that's going on? We think of burglary, we think of someone going into the house, stealing the telly, the DVD, ransacking the place and taking everything of value. Criminals seem to be taking a different approach now.
Well, I suppose criminals will try and take anything that's of value, and in the current climate, as you spoke already, Jonathan, metal is gone up in the market value, and so has oil, heating oil, diesel oil and stuff like that. But we've seen a significant rise in reported incidents of metal theft around the country, and all sorts of ferrous metal, oil, steel, lead, copper, and these are got from copper cabling. Would you believe it? Live network electricity cable, telephone cables, manhole covers, aluminium, brass, zinc, and bronze statuettes, public art, beer kegs, and even farm gates.
These are the type of things that are being stolen around the country every day now.
Absolutely. And I suppose when you look at things like that, it can cause huge damage to the community and also the people that are stealing this stuff, because when you look at somebody stealing out, getting into substations, they're putting their life at risk and they're putting other people's life at risk. A lot of these substations are in areas where kids might be playing, and they might leave gates open and kids might stray in there. As well as that, you have the health and safety of the employees of the utilities companies going back in there afterwards, and they're at danger. If they take out a telephone cable, then the communication network is down. Take out a manhole cover, then you have about a 6 or 7 foot drop then down a bicycle or a car, or there could be huge damage caused there.
Even the humble keg. I mean, kegs have been sitting outside pubs for decades without anyone interfering with them, except maybe to sit in them when the pub is full. They're now being robbed. Are they valuable?
Of course they're valuable, and I suppose when any of these metal items are sold to scrap dealers, they arrange for these metals to be recycled, and these are shipped out, so they are of value. And we're seeing a huge increase in the theft of kegs, along with all the other items I've mentioned already.
One of the things that stood out for me recently, around our house, there's a couple of graveyards, and there was these old heavy metal signs that they had the harp on them. They were, nice. It made the place look pretty. One day, they all vanished. Every single one of them was gone. Now, the council doesn't have the money to replace them. So, as you said, there is a serious impact to the community here, isn't there?
There's a serious impact to the individuals involved there as well. And a lot of personal items have been stolen. And I suppose when you're looking at who's stealing this stuff, you have individual people going around, opportunist tests. You also have people that make it their business to steal this stuff and sell the stuff on to make money by it. So it is a big problem, and we're seeing a significant rise in it. What are we doing about it? Well, I suppose there has been a national working group formed with all the various stakeholders, and involved in this you have to bring in all the different stakeholders, because take for instance Irish Rail. There has been damage done to their rail network. Lewis, the different brewers have been bought in, the Department of Environment, community and local government are involved as well, because all these stakeholders are affected with this.
If this stuff is being robbed, somebody somewhere is fencing it, somebody somewhere is taking it in. Who's that?
Without doubt they're taking it in, because in every crime, be it theft of anything, say even around town, if somebody stole a phone, stole a laptop, that has to be bought by somebody, and that really is the place that must be targeted, along with the primary source of where the stuff is stolen, to try and make sure that the stuff isn't bought, that those people that are buying it are put out of business.
I want to bring in Nick Bond, who is the head of waste enforcement with Cork County Council. He's on the line. Good afternoon to you, Nick.
Good afternoon, Jonathan.
You would have heard what Tony Davis was saying there, but who is responsible, I suppose, for making sure that those in the business of scrap metal are sticking to the law?
Well, a number of waste enforcement teams have been set up throughout the county and throughout the country, and these waste enforcement teams and the county councils are responsible for regulating this industry.
So how do they go about doing that? Because I'd imagine it's a pretty tricky industry to regulate.
Well, we have a total of 18 authorised facilities within Cork County, and we have 2 more applying for facility permits now. We put conditions on permits for these facilities, which outline who they can take the material from, what type of material they can take in, what hours they operate, and where they can move the material onto.
Okay, well that's fair enough for the guys who are playing by the rules, but how many cowboys are there out there? How many have you managed to shut down in recent years?
Well, we commenced the programme there in the mid-2006 to close down the unauthorised scrapyards throughout Cork County, and to date we've closed down 180 unauthorised scrapyards throughout the county.
In Cork alone?
In Cork alone. Now, we did this by a number of different methods. One of there's only a small waste enforcement team here, so we used a helicopter to carry out a survey of the country. The best time of the year is around November, December, when the leaves are gone. We can see all the cars. And so we would have found these scrapyards ranging from 10 to 20 vehicles up to 3,000 vehicles.
3,000 vehicles inside these scrapyards. And what happens? They just break them down and sell off the metal, is it?
Well, what they're doing is they're dismantling these vehicles and selling on the parts and on the metal. Now, they dispose of not being dismantled in a manner which prevents environmental pollution. So they might let the oil and the petrol products run out in the ground. They might break the batteries and let the acid run out in the ground. So it's important that when these vehicles are being dismantled, that they're being disposed of properly. As well as that, these unauthorised facilities cannot issue certificates of destruction on vehicles. So then the vehicles just disappear from the national database.
So cars are one thing, but what about, your copper cable and your beer kegs and all the other types of metal that are being stolen around the country? Is it harder to track them down?
It is harder to track them. One of the biggest problems we have is the fact that these facilities can pay cash for metal. But in reality, the only people who can bring material to an authorised facility are people who have waste collection permits. Now, if you want to clean out your shed at home, there's nothing prevents you from taking, say, an old cylinder you had up the back and in your shed, bring it up to this facility and disposing of it correctly and having it recovered, and we want to encourage that. However, if you turn up with 10 or 20 cylinders one day and the next day you turn up with another 10 or 20, you should have a waste collection permit.
Okay. Nick Bond, Head of Waste Enforcement with Cork County Council, thanks for your thoughts there, Nick. Tony, just one of the other issues that we've been discussing, you touched on it earlier on, the issue of home heating oil.
Yeah.
And that is a very serious problem for many people in the countryside. I know one of my own neighbours lost out to this recently. Tanks are very obviously in the garden. People are going in, they're using very simple equipment to siphon off, and it's very expensive for the household. You could have 900, 1,000 euros worth of fuel being robbed.
Yeah, again, when you see an increase in the price of oil, it makes it more attractive for these people to go and steal the stuff. And fuel tanks on farms, transport depots and domestic properties have been targeted. And I suppose the important thing with all this is to take some precautions to protect that. Same as in relation to the metal, it should be protected at source to make sure that this stuff can't be got at. I suppose the first thing when you look at it with an iron tank is the position of the tank, to see where it is, to try and have it as close to the house or to your farm where there is good visibility, also taking safety considerations into account, because these people don't want to be caught, and if there's good visibility then they may feel they could be caught. Having it close to a roadway or a driveway is a bad thing as well, because if somebody is passing, then therefore they can just go in and steal the stuff. There are certain little devices that can be used, like a closed shackle padlock. This offers more resistance, and a small bit of the loop is exposed, and they find it quite hard to cut this stuff.
So this is a kind of a small, not a big, massive lock that's easy to get access with a pliers or whatever.
Absolutely, and that's the thing that you could use on the top of the thing. And the thing about padlocks is you can get cheap padlocks, but you get what you pay for. And closed shackle padlock, there's only a little bit exposed, so it's very hard to cut. You can get oil level gauges that when it goes below a certain level, there's an audible alarm on it. Security lights are very important to preventing all sorts of crime. In Ireland, unfortunately, with the climate we have, it's going to be dark for 6 months of the year. So front and back of your house, domestic houses, yards, security lights are very, very important. Defensive planting is very important. What I mean by defensive planting is the old-fashioned thorn bushes, barbarous bushes around the place, so make it uncomfortable for these people to go near the thing. But you must consider as well the poor guy that must put the oil.
The guy delivering the oil.
You want him reefed by some barbarous bush or stuff like that. Just be aware of that.
One of the things that stands out for me is that the neighbourhood is important here. That people are the eyes and the ears of their neighbours when the neighbours aren't around. But it's equally important, I would imagine, if you suspect that there is somebody next door who's robbing home heating oil or stealing metal from a local yard or whatever, you're probably best not to do anything yourself and to call you guys.
Oh, absolutely. I suppose, Jonathan, Ireland is renowned for community spirit, and anybody coming from abroad coming to Ireland can't believe how you know people walking down the street and salute them and greet them. And it's very important to keep that up, to make sure that everybody looks out for everybody, all their vulnerable neighbours, and no matter what the circumstances, be it oil, be it metal, be it people calling to their door offering services and stuff like that. If you have a vulnerable neighbour or something like that, make sure you look out for them, report everything suspicious, take down a number if you think it's suspicious, and don't be afraid to ring up. Sometimes people are afraid to ring up saying, sure, listen, they won't take any notice. They'll do nothing about it.
And they'll hear, people will have heard, rural Garda stations being closed and all that. There is a determination, I would imagine, amongst most rural Gardaí to catch these guys in the act, because that will be the evidence that they will bring to a court.
Well, I suppose there's a determination to catch everybody, no matter where they are, to make sure that they are prosecuted and brought to court, and make sure that there's less victims there, and that they are looked after, even if there is anywhere closed down. Don't be afraid to ring. 999 is a number in relation to anything of immediate importance, but make sure they ring a Garda station. There's always going to be somebody there to answer the phone, and they'll get there as quickly as possible. The other thing that's being stolen in relation to oil, Jonathan, is road diesel. And we've seen some tanks being of trucks and lorries being attacked.
They're actually going to the lorry and taking it out of the lorry.
Absolutely. And the one thing we'll say is to these people is make sure they park in well-lit areas, the tank facing the roadway. You can get locking fuel caps on these things, but what we find, if you lock the fuel cap, they'll bore a hole in it, so they could do actually more damage. You can get actual alarms for these things as well. But I suppose lighting, CCTV, and making sure people look out for each other is the most important thing, John.
We'd love to think that we still lived in an Ireland where you could leave your door unlocked and even the keys in the car when you're outside in the driveway. But I think that those days, sadly, are long gone. Tony Davis, Sergeant at Anglesey Street Garda Station here in Cork, Crime Prevention Officer. Thanks for coming in and talking to us.
Very welcome, Jonathan.